Tu Diep. Hello everyone, wishing you all good health and peace in life. It was a farewell wrapped in silence, CEO James's last act of love for Tu Diep before leaving. He didn't say much, but his eyes carried the weight of every word left unspoken, as if afraid that saying them out loud would make the goodbye too real. Now, with his journey to Cambodia ahead, a question lingers in the air like an unshakable shadow. Will this be the last time he sees her again, or will fate, in its quiet way, find a path to bring their hearts back together? The night was unusually quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. James sat in his car for a long moment before stepping out, staring at the dimly lit house ahead. Tomorrow, he would be on a plane to Cambodia, rushing into the unknown chaos of two struggling companies his father had built over a lifetime. No one could tell him how long he would be gone. No one could promise he would ever come back, and as the thought settled in his chest, one question refused to leave his mind. Will this be the last time I see Tu Diep again? Earlier that day, his mother had told him everything. The phone call from his father had been urgent, almost desperate. Both companies in Cambodia were on the brink of collapse, and James's presence was no longer optional, it was the only hope. She had tried to suggest to his father that perhaps it was time to close everything and return to Vietnam to live with family, but his father had refused without hesitation. "This is my life's work," he had said. "I cannot abandon it." James understood. He too had dreams he could not give up, but this time, those dreams came at the cost of leaving Tu Diep behind. As he walked into the small, warm kitchen of his mother's home, she reminded him to visit Tu Diep before leaving. "She's building the new farm you designed for her," she said softly. "You should see her, spend one last evening together. Who knows when you'll be back?" By the time James arrived at Tu Diep's home, the sun had long dipped behind the mountains. The scent of fresh bamboo shoots and the faint chatter of chickens drifted from the yard. Tu Diep wasn't home yet. She had gone out to buy more chicken feed. When she returned, she was carrying a small bag and smiling apologetically. "I'm sorry I'm late," she said, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I didn't want the chickens to go hungry." James had already prepared dinner. The table was set with simple dishes: steamed rice, stir-fried vegetables, and a bit of meat. They ate together, and for a while, it felt almost normal. But Tu Diep noticed it. The way he looked at her, the heaviness in his eyes, the pauses in his smile. "Something's wrong," she said quietly. "You're not yourself today." James put his chopsticks down. "I have to tell you something. Tomorrow morning, I'm leaving for Cambodia. My father's companies are in serious trouble. If I don't go, they might go bankrupt. I don't know when I'll be back." For a moment, Tu Diep said nothing. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. "Go," she whispered. "Do what you have to do. I'll be here, waiting for you, no matter how long it takes." Her words should have brought him comfort, but instead they deepened the ache in his heart. "I'm afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that if I'm gone too long, I'll lose you." "You won't," she said firmly. "Even if it's 1 month, 1 year, or many years, I'll still be here." That night, James stayed with her. They spoke of the future, of the farm she would finish in his absence, of the small things they would do together when he returned. He told her to take care of herself, to never push her health too far. "Tears," he told her softly, "are only for those who love you. Never cry in front of people who wish you harm." When they finally lay down to sleep, Tu Diep wrapped her arms around him, holding on as if by sheer will she could keep him from leaving. James closed his eyes, memorizing the warmth of her body, the scent of her hair, the rhythm of her breathing. In a few hours, the morning would come. The plane would take him far from her, and though he promised himself he would return as soon as possible, he couldn't shake the fear that fate had its own plans. Some farewells are temporary, others last a lifetime. James could only pray that this one was the first. The morning came far too quickly. The first pale light of dawn slipped through the curtains, washing the room in a soft glow. James opened his eyes to find Tu Diep still asleep beside him, her face peaceful, but her hand clutching his as if she knew he would soon be gone. He didn't want to wake her. For a long moment, He just watched her, committing every detail to memory: the curve of her lips, the way a loose strand of hair rested across her cheek, the faint scent of jasmine from her pillow. It felt almost cruel to break the stillness, but the ticking clock on the wall reminded him that time wasn't waiting. Gently, he brushed the hair away from her face and whispered, "I'll be back, Diep. I promise." Her eyes fluttered open, and for a heartbeat, she looked at him as though trying to convince herself this was just a bad dream. But she didn't cry. Instead, she sat up and helped him gather his things. "The sooner you go, the sooner you'll come back," she said, her voice steady though her hands trembled. They walked together to the small gate at the front of her home. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of earth and morning dew. A rooster crowed in the distance, marking the start of a new day. "Take care of yourself," James said, tightening the strap on his bag. "Don't overwork. Let Lynn and my mother help you with the farm. And remember," "I know," she interrupted softly. "Tears are only for those I love. I'll save them for when you come back." James smiled, though his chest felt heavy. He pulled her into one last embrace, holding her so tightly that for a moment, it felt like they could defy the world and stay like this forever. Then, reluctantly, he stepped away. The ride to the airport felt endless. His phone buzzed once. Diep's message, "I'll be waiting. Always." He read it again and again until the plane lifted off, Vietnam shrinking beneath him, leaving only clouds and uncertainty ahead. In Cambodia, the reality of the crisis hit him instantly. The two companies were worse off than he imagined: contracts lost, suppliers pulling out, workers demanding unpaid wages. It was chaos, and James was thrown into a battle on all fronts. Days blurred into nights, filled with tense negotiations, urgent phone calls, and sleepless hours staring at spreadsheets and bank statements. Yet every evening, when the world finally quieted, his mind wandered back to the small house with the sound of chickens in the yard, and the woman who had promised to wait for him. In those moments, the weight of distance felt unbearable. He didn't know when he could return. He didn't even know if he could win this fight. But one thing was certain: every decision he made, every risk he took, was for that single promise he had left behind in the early light of dawn. Because love, he realized, was not only about being together. Sometimes it was about fighting alone so that one day you could come back. Days in Cambodia passed like a storm without end. James barely slept. His schedule was a battlefield of urgent meetings, legal consultations, and relentless negotiations. The companies weren't just struggling, they were being torn apart from the inside. One evening, after another failed meeting with a potential investor, James sat alone in his office, staring at the city lights beyond the window. He had been sifting through financial records for hours, hoping to find some overlooked solution, when a troubling pattern emerged. Large sums of investment capital had been withdrawn suddenly to be a coincidence. Contracts were being terminated without cause. Suppliers were disappearing overnight. Someone wasn't just letting the companies fail. Someone was making sure they collapsed. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. Who would gain from this? The answer was as bitter as it was dangerous: an old rival of his father's, a man known for playing dirty and waiting years to take revenge. The thought of failure tightened like a noose around his throat, but more than the company. His mind went to Diep. If he lost everything here, would he even have the right to return to her? Or would he be coming back empty-handed, carrying only shame? That night, instead of calling her, he typed a message and deleted it twice. He didn't want her to hear the weight in his voice, didn't want her to worry about something she couldn't control. She deserved to keep her days light, tending to the farm, building the dream they had planned together. But Diep wasn't easily fooled. 2 days later, her name flashed on his phone. "James," she said softly, "I know you're hiding something. I can hear it in the silence." He hesitated. "It's complicated. The situation here is worse than I thought. Someone is sabotaging us." "Then fight," she said firmly. "You've never been the kind of man to walk away from a fight. And remember, you're not alone. I'm here, even if I'm far away." Her voice was the anchor he didn't know he needed. After the call, James straightened his shoulders and began making calls of his own. He would find out who was pulling the strings and cut them off no matter the cost. But as he dug deeper, he realized something far more dangerous. The sabotage wasn't just about business. It was personal. Whoever was behind it wasn't only targeting the companies, they knew about Diep. And if James failed here, Cambodia wouldn't be the only battlefield. The story of James and Diep reminds us that love and commitment are tested most during times of uncertainty. When life pulls us in different directions, it's easy to let fear or distance weaken the bonds we've built. But true connection is not measured by how often we see each other, it's measured by how deeply we choose to stand by each other when the storm comes. James's struggle in Cambodia shows that success is never guaranteed. No matter how hard we work, there will always be challenges, rivals, and unexpected obstacles. Yet the strength to keep fighting often comes not from business strategies or financial plans, but from the quiet support of someone who believes in us without question. The greatest lesson here is simple: protect what matters most. Money can be lost and rebuilt. Companies can rise and fall. But the trust and love we nurture in another person, if we guard it with honesty, loyalty, and courage, can survive even the longest distance and the hardest battles. In the end, the true victory is not just saving the business. It's returning home to the person who waited for you because they knew you would fight your way back. 2 more days passed, and James's investigation led him to a name he had hoped never to see again: John. It was like a shadow stepping out from the past. John wasn't just any rival. He had a history with James's family, one rooted in bitterness and betrayal. Years ago, land disputes between their fathers had destroyed whatever trust had once existed, leaving only anger. Now, John had resurfaced in Cambodia, moving quietly through the business networks like a predator in tall grass. He had been the one pulling investments out at the last second, convincing suppliers to cancel shipments, and spreading rumors that James's companies were on the brink of collapse. But that wasn't all. James found a confidential message intended for one of John's associates, a chilling line that made his blood run cold. If the business doesn't break him, the girl will. The girl, there was no doubt who he meant. James's first instinct was to fly back to Vietnam immediately, but leaving now would mean abandoning the fight. If he returned too soon, he would be coming home with nothing but warnings and fear, and John would still be free to strike again. That night, James sat on the balcony of his hotel, the warm Cambodian air heavy with the scent of rain. His thoughts drifted to Diep, her quiet strength, the way she had told him to fight, the trust she had placed in him. She didn't know how close danger had come, and maybe it was better that way. If she knew, she might become the next target before James could shield her. So he made a decision. He would stay. He would fight this battle here, end it at its source, and only then return to her safe, victorious, and unbroken. But as the first drops of rain began to fall, James couldn't escape a question that gnawed at him in the silence. When this was over, would Diep still be waiting, or would the distance, the silence, and the danger slowly pull her away? Some battles, James knew, weren't fought with contracts or strategies. Some battles were fought in the heart,